What if the moment you lose your temper isn't you at all, but a hidden part of your mind grabbing the wheel? If you've ever snapped, regretted it instantly, and thought, why did I do that? This story will show you exactly what's happening and how to stop the hijack before it spreads. Welcome to Momentum Mind. Tonight, we step into Ariel's inner city, where a soldier stands guard, an ember hides, and a shadow is learning your name. Chapter 1: The City of Bright Minds and Hidden Storms. In the heart of a wide, humming city, there stood a tower of glass that caught the sky like a net. From far away, it looked like a clean blade of light. People called it the House of Reason. Inside, the halls were smooth and pale, and every room held soft screens that glowed with tidy charts and calm lines. Here, cleverness was worshipped the way some towns worship rain. Here, quick answers were prized like jewels. Ariel worked in the upper floors, where the air smelled faintly of metal and lemon polish. He had the kind of mind people pointed at and nodded, the kind that could cut problems into neat slices. When a meeting grew messy, he could name the core issue with a few sharp words. When others froze, he moved. He carried himself like a person who believed the world could be mastered by thought alone. Yet sometimes, without warning, something in him would break loose like a trapped animal. It happened on a day when the city was bright enough to sting. In a room lined with windows, Ariel sat across from a colleague named Mara. Mara had warm eyes and a voice that usually softened the edges of a tense talk. Today, her face was careful, as if she were walking across thin ice. "We need to talk about the project," she said. Ariel heard the words as a simple request. But his body heard something else. A faint shift in her tone, a tiny pause before his name. His chest tightened. A heat rose behind his eyes, fast and rude, like a spark landing in dry grass. "I know what I'm doing," he said too quickly. Mara blinked. "I didn't say you didn't." But the heat was already spreading. Ariel's mind began to race, gathering scraps of old memories, old slights, old moments when someone had smiled and then later shut a door. His thoughts turned sharp, suspicious. His voice rose. He spoke as if he were under attack, as if words were stones being thrown. Mara's eyes widened, not with anger, but with surprise that tipped into hurt. The room felt suddenly smaller. The city outside looked distant, unreal. Ariel could see Mara's mouth moving, could hear the sound of her voice, but the meaning slipped away like water through his fingers. It was as if a hidden switch had been thrown and the lights of his careful mind had dimmed. When he finally stopped, the silence that followed was thick. Mara's hands lay still on the table. Her shoulders were drawn in, like someone bracing for cold. "I didn't come here to fight you," she said. "I came here because I thought you'd listen." Then she stood and left, her steps quiet, as if she didn't want to wake something sleeping in the room. Ariel sat alone with the glow of the screens and the sun on the windows, and for the first time that day he noticed a tremble in his hands. He felt the aftermath the way you feel smoke after a fire, the sting, the dull headache, the bitter taste of what can't be taken back. His thoughts tried to rebuild control, to explain, to justify, to arrange his actions into something that sounded reasonable. But underneath, another feeling stirred, heavy and raw. Shame. He left the House of Reason and stepped into the street where people moved in flowing streams. Above them, drones drifted like lazy birds, carrying packages in their quiet claws. Digital signs on building faces shimmered with cheerful offers. The city did not notice Ariel's storm. The city had its own rhythm and its own peace, and Ariel felt like he was walking with a crack down the center of him. He went to the one place in the city that did not try to sell a calm surface. It was a narrow shop tucked between a bakery and an old tailor. The sign above it had no bright lights, only carved letters darkened with age, the Compass Room. Inside, the air smelled of paper and cedar. Shelves rose to the ceiling, crowded with books, jars of ink, strange instruments shaped like spirals and moons. Behind the counter stood an older man with thick gray hair and eyes that seemed to look through a person instead of at them. His name was Soren. Some called him a teacher, others called him a fixer. People who walked out of the Compass Room often did so more slowly than when they entered, as if they were learning a new way to move. Soren watched Ariel approach without surprise. "You look like someone who got pulled by a current," Soren said. Ariel tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "I lost my temper." Soren tilted his head. "Did you lose it, or did it take you?" Ariel frowned. "What's the difference?" Soren reached under the counter and brought out a small object. It looked like a clear stone sphere, no larger than a palm. Inside, a faint swirl of color drifted, like a cloud trapped in glass. "This is a mirror globe," Soren said. "Hold it." Ariel hesitated, then took it. The globe was cool, heavier than it looked. "What do you see?" Soren asked. At first, Ariel saw only the swirl. Then, as he stared, the color shifted. Shapes formed as if someone were painting with mist. Ariel's own face appeared inside, but not as it looked in a bathroom mirror. This face was tight around the mouth. The eyes were sharp, almost wild. Behind him in the globe, Mara's face flashed, and Ariel's voice echoed faintly, harsh and quick. Ariel's stomach twisted. He tried to pull his hands away, but the globe held his attention like a hook. "That's not how it felt," Ariel whispered. Soren's voice was gentle. "It almost never is. When the storm rises inside, it doesn't ask your permission. It doesn't wait for your best thinking. It grabs the wheel and drives." Ariel swallowed. "So what am I supposed to do? Be less human?" Soren shook his head. "Be more human. The part of you that can solve puzzles is only one part. There is another part, older, faster, made to keep you alive. It can save you. It can also ruin you, if you never learn its language." Ariel stared at the globe. The image inside faded, returning to the drifting swirl. His fingers tightened around it, as if he feared it might slip away. Soren leaned closer. "In the House of Reason, they teach you to sharpen the mind like a blade. But they rarely teach you to hold the blade without cutting yourself. Tell me, Ariel, when the heat rose in you, could you name what you were feeling before it became anger?" Ariel opened his mouth, then closed it. He tried to replay the moment, to find a clean label. Anger, yes. But before that, something else. Something that had felt like threat. "I don't know," he admitted. Soren nodded as if this answer were expected. "Most don't. They feel the surge, and then they are already running. But feelings have footsteps. They approach. They leave signs. If you learn to notice those signs, you can choose what to do next." Ariel's throat tightened. "I don't want to keep doing this. I don't want to hurt people and then pretend it was logic." Soren's eyes softened. "Then you are ready to learn." Soren reached for a book on the shelf behind him. Its cover was plain, but the pages inside shimmered faintly, as if they held a hidden map. He placed it on the counter between them and slid it forward. "This is not a book of tricks," Soren said. "It is a guide to a world you already live in, but rarely see clearly. A world where feelings move like weather, where attention is a lantern, where calm can be trained, where empathy is a bridge, and where the strongest kind of power is not force, but mastery." Ariel stared at the book, feeling a strange pull, as if it were calling a part of him he had ignored for too long. "What's it called?" Ariel asked. Soren's fingers rested lightly on the cover. "The Art of Knowing the Heart." Ariel looked up. "And if I learn it, I'll never lose control again?" Soren's expression turned serious. "If you learn it, you will lose control sometimes. But you will lose it for shorter moments. You will return sooner. You will repair what you break. And one day, you may feel the surge rising and meet it with understanding instead of fear." Ariel hesitated, then reached for the book. The moment his hand touched it, the room seemed to dim at the edges, as if the world were drawing inward. The shelves blurred. The cedar scent thickened. The mirror globe in his other hand grew warmer. Ariel's breath caught. "What is happening?" Soren's eyes gleamed. "You're noticing." The air in the compass room shifted, and Ariel felt, very clearly, that something had awakened inside him, something that had been waiting a long time to be seen. In the glass of the shop window, he caught his own reflection, and for a heartbeat, his face looked unfamiliar, as if another self were watching back. Then the mirror globe pulsed once, like a heartbeat in his palm, and the swirl inside darkened into a shape that looked like a doorway. Chapter 2: The Doorway Behind the Eyes. The mirror globe grew warmer until Ariel thought it might burn him, but it didn't. It felt alive, like a small animal breathing in his hands. The swirl inside it thickened, folding in on itself, turning from soft color into a deep, shadowed whirl. The shape of a doorway sharpened, not like a drawn picture but like an opening you could step through if you were small enough. Ariel's pulse matched the globe's slow throb. Soren did not reach to stop him. He only watched, calm as a stone in a river. "Keep your feet where they are," he said quietly. "This door doesn't open in the room. It opens in you." Ariel's mouth went dry. He tried to set the globe down, but his fingers wouldn't obey the way they usually did. The moment he loosened his grip, the warmth surged, and a wave of dizziness rolled through him. The shelves of the compass room leaned. The air seemed to stretch, like fabric pulled too tight. Ariel blinked. The shop was still there, but it looked farther away, as if he were seeing it through a long tunnel. The edges of things blurred into soft halos. Sound changed too. The city noise outside fell away until it was distant and muffled, and in its place came a quieter, stranger sound, the rush of blood in his own ears, the gentle click of his breathing, the faint creak of his joints as he stood. Then another sound slid in, delicate but unmistakable. A whisper. Not a voice in the room. Not Soren's. Something closer. Something inside. Ariel's first instinct was to fight it, to clamp down with reason the way he always had. But the whisper didn't argue. It didn't demand. It simply floated up like a scent you can't ignore once it reaches you. He realized, with a small shock, that he was feeling. Not the big, obvious feelings that punch through a day like thunder. Smaller ones. Earlier ones. The kind that usually hit under thoughts like stones under water. There was tension in his shoulders, a tight rope drawn across the back of his neck. There was a cold knot in his stomach, older than the argument with Mara, older even than the morning. There was a restless buzzing under his skin, the echo of too many days spent proving himself. Ariel swallowed. His throat felt thick. Soren's voice seemed to come from far away. Tell me what you notice. Ariel tried to answer quickly, the way he answered in meetings, with confident words. But the words didn't line up. The sensations were more honest than his usual language. My body feels braced, he said slower. Like I'm waiting for something to hit me. Soren nodded once. And what do you think you're waiting for? Ariel's mind offered a clean, simple response: criticism. Failure. A mistake. But those were just labels, tidy as paper tags. Under them, something raw moved. He looked into the mirror globe again. The doorway inside it widened, and beyond it he saw a place that wasn't the shop. It was a landscape made of memory and feeling, but it didn't look like a dream. It looked like a real city, built with different rules. Buildings rose in shapes that made no sense to geometry, leaning and curling like thoughts. Streets glimmered as if paved with dark water. Above everything, a sky shifted colors constantly, reflecting moods instead of weather. And moving through that strange inner city were figures. They were not people exactly, yet they carried human expressions in the way a mask carries a face. Some were small and quick, darting between alleyways. Some were large and heavy, moving like slow clouds. Ariel saw one figure that looked like a tall, rigid soldier made of sharp angles. It walked with a spear held close to its chest. Its eyes were fixed forward, scanning for danger. Ariel's breath hitched. He knew that soldier. He had felt it for years, without seeing it, the guard inside him that never slept. Is that me? Ariel asked. Soren's reply was almost tender. It's a part of you. One that learned long ago how to protect you. The soldier turned, as if hearing them. For a moment Ariel felt its gaze through the globe, cold and assessing. Then the soldier raised its spear slightly, not in attack, but in warning. Ariel flinched. It looks like it hates everything. It doesn't hate, Soren said. It fears. And fear often wears armor so it won't be seen. Ariel's fingers tightened around the globe. So that's why I snapped at Mara. Because of this? Soren shrugged in a way that felt like an invitation to look deeper. You tell me. What did you feel right before the anger? Ariel tried to return to the meeting room in his mind. The bright windows. Mara's careful tone. The pause. The shift. And there it was, suddenly clear, like a hidden wire pulled into view. He had felt judged. Not by Mara, not truly, but by something inside him that was always listening for signs of rejection. The smallest hint of doubt had struck him like a bell, and before he could understand it, the soldier had already stepped forward and raised its spear. I felt like she was about to take something away, Ariel said, voice low. Respect. Trust. The idea that I'm worth listening to. Soren's eyes stayed on him, steady and unblinking. That feeling has a name. Ariel swallowed again. Fear. Soren nodded. And it came before the anger. That's important. The compass room sharpened into focus again for a moment, as if the world were testing whether Ariel would flee back into ordinary sight. He could hear the faint jingle of the shop's door as someone passed outside. He could smell cedar and paper. His feet were still planted on the wooden floor. But inside the globe, the inner city continued to move, alive and waiting. Ariel stared at the soldier. The figure was so tense it looked like it might shatter. Ariel felt a sudden surge of compassion, strange and uncomfortable, like trying on a new kind of clothing. What happens if I talk to it? Ariel asked. Soren's mouth lifted at the corner. Try. Ariel focused on the globe until it felt like he was falling forward, not with his body but with his attention. The doorway widened again. The inner city's sounds rose, the distant rumble of something like thunder, the hiss of wind between crooked buildings, the murmur of countless whispers that weren't words but feelings brushing against each other. Ariel's voice came out softly, directed toward the soldier as if it were a frightened animal. You don't have to do that, he said. You don't have to fight everyone. The soldier didn't lower its spear. But its stance shifted, almost imperceptibly. Ariel felt its suspicion like a cold draft. Then, from behind the soldier, another figure emerged. It was smaller, wrapped in dark cloth, moving with quick, skittish steps. Its eyes were huge. It held something tight against its chest, a small, glowing ember that flickered with fragile light. Ariel's heart lurched. The ember looked like something precious and easily crushed. What is that? Ariel whispered. Soren's voice drifted in, careful. That is what the soldier guards. The small figure glanced up at Ariel, and Ariel felt a rush of old memories, moments of wanting approval, wanting warmth, wanting to belong. Moments of being laughed at, dismissed, laughed out. Moments when he had learned that being impressive was safer than being open. The ember pulsed faintly, responding to his attention. Ariel's throat tightened until it hurt. He wanted to look away. He wanted to close the globe, shut the door, return to the bright halls of logic where everything could be measured and managed. But the ember's light was so lonely. I didn't know you were there, Ariel murmured. The small figure hugged the ember closer, as if expecting the words to be a trap. Ariel tried to breathe slowly, the way Soren's calm seemed to breathe. In. Out. In. Out. The inner city sky shifted from sharp, uneasy color into something slightly softer. Soren spoke again, and this time his voice felt like it was beside Ariel, not far away. This is the first skill. Not fixing. Not forcing. Not pretending. Not running. Just seeing what is there, as it is. Ariel nodded, though Soren might not even see it. His gaze stayed on the inner figures. And if I see it? Ariel asked. What then? Soren's answer was simple. Then you can choose. Ariel's mind bristled at that word. Choose. He had always believed he chose. He chose his words. He chose his actions. He chose his career. Yet he could still hear his own voice in the meeting room, sharp and loud, as if someone else had spoken through him. You're telling me I haven't been choosing, Ariel said. I'm telling you, Soren replied, that when the storm rises fast enough, the part of you built for survival takes over. It hijacks the wheel. It makes you do what it thinks will keep you safe. It doesn't care if it ruins your relationships. It doesn't care if it makes you lonely. It cares about one thing, not getting hurt. Ariel stared at the soldier and the small figure. He felt the truth of it settle into his bones, heavy and undeniable. In the inner city, the soldier turned slightly, as if listening. The spear lowered a fraction, not a surrender, but a test. The small figure loosened its grip on the ember, and for the first time Ariel saw that the ember's light wasn't only fragile. It was also warm. It held something like hope. Like love. Like the desire to connect. Ariel felt tears prick at his eyes, surprising and embarrassing. He blinked hard, but the tears stayed, shining at the edges of his vision. I don't know how to do this, Ariel admitted. I don't know how to handle it when it comes. Soren reached across the counter and placed 2 fingers lightly on the edge of the book. The pages shimmered again, a soft ripple like water touched by wind. You start with the lantern, Soren said. The lantern is your attention. You learn where it goes when you are calm. You learn where it runs when you are threatened. And then you practice bringing it back, again and again, until it becomes strong enough to hold steady in the storm. Ariel's grip on the globe relaxed slightly. And if I can hold steady, I won't hurt people? Soren did not answer right away. His silence felt deliberate, like a teacher letting a student hear their own question. Then he said, You will still feel anger. Anger is not evil. It's a signal. But you won't be trapped inside it. You'll be able to listen to what it's guarding. Ariel looked back into the inner city. The sky shifted again, and now, far down one of the glimmering streets, something moved, something bigger than the soldier, bigger than the small figure, bigger than the buildings themselves. A shadow slid along the ground like a slow wave. It carried a sense of hunger and heat, of blind force. Ariel felt it in his chest like a drumbeat. What is that? Ariel asked, voice tight. Soren's eyes narrowed slightly, as if he too could see the movement through Ariel's gaze. That, he said, is what happens when storms go unnamed for too long. The shadow swelled at the end of the street, rising as if it were gathering itself to charge. The soldier lifted its spear again, suddenly tense. The small figure clutched the ember. The air in the inner city vibrated with warning. Ariel's mouth went dry. Is it coming here? Soren's voice turned low and urgent. It is already here. It's been following you for a long time. And now that you've opened your eyes, it knows you can see it. In the mirror globe, the shadow's edge curled like a grin, and Ariel felt, with sudden clarity, that the next time anger rose, it might not come as a simple flare. It might come as a wave meant to drown him whole. Chapter 3: The Lantern and the Flood. Ariel left the compass room with the book tucked against his ribs, as if holding it close could keep it from slipping away. The city's air felt sharper now. Sounds were louder. The scrape of shoes on pavement, the soft whir of drones overhead, the distant sigh of traffic, all of it pressed in with a new insistence. It was not that the city had changed. It was that Ariel had. The mirror globe was in his pocket, heavy as a secret. He could feel its warmth even through cloth, a steady pulse against his thigh. Every few steps, he imagined he felt it throb harder, like a warning. Like a reminder that the inner city was not a metaphor in a book. It was a place he carried, and its streets were restless. He tried to go back to the House of Reason. The tower rose ahead, bright and clean, and its glass face reflected the sky in neat, harmless colors. From the outside, it looked like certainty. He wanted that feeling back. He wanted the old comfort of believing that if he just thought hard enough, he could control everything. Inside, the lobby greeted him with its soft lights and smooth surfaces. People moved with purpose, eyes on their screens, fingers flicking through invisible lists. Ariel nodded to a guard he'd known for months, but even as he did, he noticed the guard's tired eyes, the tightness around his mouth. Ariel had seen those details before, but they had never reached him. Now they did, like small taps on a door. He rode the lift up, and the higher it climbed, the more his stomach tightened. His body was already bracing, already waiting for the hit he had named in Soren's shop. He told himself it was just nerves. But the mirror globe warmed again, like it disagreed. When the lift doors opened, the familiar hallway stretched out, lined with pale walls and silent screens that displayed company slogans about excellence and efficiency. Ariel walked toward his workspace, but each step felt like walking into a place that had once been home and now felt slightly hostile, like a room where the air had gone stale. At his desk, a message was blinking on his screen. Mara's name hovered there, bright and unavoidable. He stared at it longer than he should have. His hands hovered above the keys, uncertain. He could write a clean apology, a polished one, the kind that sounded professional and safe. But Soren's words rose in him, not fixing, not forcing. Seeing what is there. Ariel closed his eyes. He tried to find the earlier feeling beneath the urge to defend himself. The fear was there, like a shadow behind a curtain. Fear of being seen as flawed. Fear of losing respect. Fear of being exposed as someone who could not handle himself. He opened his eyes, and without letting his mind sculpt the message into something clever, he typed simply, "I'm sorry. I reacted like you were attacking me. You weren't. I want to understand what you needed to tell me." His finger hovered over send. A familiar tension rose. What if she used this against him? What if she thought less of him? The soldier in his inner city lifted its spear. Ariel breathed. He pressed send anyway. For a moment, nothing happened. The city did not shake. The tower did not collapse. No alarms blared. Ariel's body stayed tense, waiting for punishment that didn't arrive. Then another message appeared, not from Mara, but from a manager named Kellen. "Come to the main room. Now." Ariel's throat tightened. Kellen was known for his calm voice and his cold decisions. People respected him the way they respected a storm cloud, with cautious distance. Ariel stood, feeling his skin prickle, and walked down the hall. The main room was a wide space with a long table and a wall of screens. A few colleagues sat stiffly, their faces careful. Kellen stood at the head of the room, hands resting on the table's edge as if he owned the air itself. Ariel took a seat. The chair felt too hard, too upright. His mind began to run ahead, preparing arguments, preparing defenses. But underneath, the fear stirred again, and with it came something else, a hot flicker of anger, quick as a match. Kellen's eyes settled on Ariel. "There's been a complaint," he said. The word complaint struck Ariel like a slap. His chest tightened. His ears seemed to fill with blood. Kellen continued, voice even. "About your behavior in a meeting." Ariel's thoughts snapped into sharpness. His jaw clenched. The inner soldier stepped forward, spear raised. Ariel felt the urge to speak fast, to explain, to justify, to strike first so he wouldn't be struck. Then, like a small light in a dark corridor, Soren's lantern image returned to him. The lantern is attention. Ariel did something he had never done in a room like this. He shifted his attention away from Kellen's words and turned it inward, gently but firmly, as if turning his face toward a sound in the night. His body was trembling, though no one could see it. His stomach felt like a fist. His throat was tight. Behind his ribs, his heart was pounding like it wanted to escape. He named it silently, fear. Not shame. Not rage. Fear. Just naming it did not make it vanish. But it changed something. It slowed the flood by a fraction. It gave Ariel a narrow ledge to stand on. Kellen was still speaking. We value high performance, he said. But we also value collaboration. You've been intense. Ariel's mouth wanted to spit out a clever answer. Something crisp. Something that made him look strong. The old Ariel would have done it without hesitation. But the lantern was in his hand now, and he could see the storm's shape more clearly. He could feel the anger trying to surge, trying to protect the ember. Ariel took a breath that was deeper than his usual shallow sips of air. He let the breath move slowly through his chest like water through a channel. I did raise my voice, he said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, quieter, less polished, more real. I'm taking responsibility for it. I've reached out to Mara to apologize. Around the table, a few faces shifted, surprised. Kellen's expression barely changed, but Ariel thought he saw a slight pause, as if the manager had expected a fight and was recalculating. Kellen nodded once. Good. Because we can't have disruption. Disruption. The word stung, and the anger flared again, wanting to bite back. Ariel felt it like heat behind his eyes, like a swarm of sharp insects under his skin. He tightened his grip on the lantern of attention. He didn't try to crush the anger. He tried to listen to what it was saying. It was saying, don't let them shame you. Don't let them decide who you are. Ariel swallowed. He realized, with a quiet shock, that anger was not only violence. It was also protection. It was the soldier's spear. It was the body's alarm. It was the inner city shouting that something mattered. But if you swung the spear at everyone, you'd end up alone. Kellen dismissed the meeting with a cold, efficient gesture. People stood and filed out. Ariel remained seated for a moment, feeling sweat cool on his palms. He had avoided the worst. But the shadow Soren had warned him about was not gone. It was still there, waiting in the inner streets, watching for a crack. When Ariel finally rose, his legs felt weak. He walked back to his desk, sat down, and stared at his hands. They were steady now, but he knew how close he had been to losing himself. The rest of the day moved like a dream. Ariel did his work, answered questions, smiled at the right moments. But a part of him remained turned inward, listening. He noticed how often tension rose in him like a reflex. How often his mind tried to race ahead and control outcomes. How often his body reacted before he had a thought. When he left the tower at dusk, the city was washed in soft light. The drones overhead blinked like floating stars. The streets glowed with signs that promised comfort, pleasure, success. Ariel walked without buying any of it. He went instead to a quiet park tucked between tall buildings, a place where trees grew stubbornly despite the city's steel. He sat on a bench under a canopy of leaves that rustled like whispered secrets. He pulled the mirror globe from his pocket. The globe's surface was cool now, but the pulse inside remained. Ariel held it up, and the doorway formed again, dark and inviting. He hesitated. Part of him wanted to keep the door closed. Another part, small, glowing, brave, wanted to step deeper into the inner city, to understand what lurked there. He focused his attention. The world narrowed. The park sounds faded. The doorway widened. This time, the inner city looked different. The sky was darker, bruised with tension. The streets glimmered with uneasy light. The soldier was there, spear raised, but it wasn't alone. The small figure with the ember crouched behind it, eyes wide. And down the street, the shadow was closer. It moved like a flood made of heat and darkness. As it approached, the building seemed to lean away, as if even stone feared it. Ariel felt it in his chest, a rising pressure that threatened to burst into panic. He tried to keep the lantern steady. He tried to name what he felt. Fear. Anger. Shame. But the shadow did not care about names. It rolled forward, hungry for the wheel. Ariel's breath shortened. His attention flickered. The lantern dimmed. In the inner city, the soldier braced, spear trembling. The small figure hugged the ember tighter, as if expecting to be swallowed. Ariel felt the shadow reach for him. And then, from a side street he hadn't noticed before, a new presence appeared. It was not loud. It did not charge. It simply stepped into the open, calm as moonlight. A figure wrapped in pale cloth, face soft and open, eyes clear. It carried no weapon. In its hands was a bowl of still water that reflected the shifting sky. The shadow slowed, as if confused. Ariel stared. Who is that? he whispered. Soren's voice echoed faintly in his memory, as if spoken from the pages of the book pressed against his ribs. Empathy is a bridge. The pale figure lifted the bowl, and the surface of the water shimmered, showing not Ariel's face, but Mara's, hurt, guarded, trying not to cry. The shadow trembled, recoiling for a heartbeat. Ariel's chest tightened with a new feeling, sharp and aching. Regret. And as the shadow surged again, trying to drown even that, Ariel realized with sudden fear that regret alone would not be enough to stop it. Chapter 4: The Bridge of Listening. The pale figure stood in the inner city as if it had all the time in the world. It did not glare at the shadow. It did not brace like the soldier or cower like the Ember Keeper. It simply held the bowl of still water and let the reflection settle. The shadow surged, then hesitated again, like a predator uncertain of a new smell. Ariel's breath shook. He could feel the flood pressing against the thin walls of his attention, trying to shove its way into the driver's seat. His thoughts began to speed up, searching for a tactic, a trick, a clean solution. But Soren's lessons were not about tricks. They were about holding steady long enough for a choice to exist. Ariel focused on the pale figure's hands. On the water surface. On the quiet. He felt his own body, the tightness in his stomach, the heat in his face, the tension behind his eyes. He named the feelings again, softly, like calling skittish animals by name so they would not run: fear, anger, shame, regret. The lantern brightened a little. The pale figure looked up at Ariel as if it could see him through the doorway, and Ariel felt something like an invitation. Not a demand. Not a test. An opening. The figure's eyes shifted toward the soldier. The soldier's spear trembled. It wanted to rush forward, to stab at the shadow before it could swallow them. Ariel understood that urge. It was the old way: strike first, defend yourself, keep the ember hidden. But the pale figure did not step back. It moved toward the soldier with slow, careful steps, the way you approach a frightened dog. It did not try to take the spear. It did not tell the soldier to relax. It simply came close enough that the soldier could feel its presence. Then, very gently, the pale figure lowered the bowl of water to the ground. The water did not spill. It stayed smooth as glass. Ariel felt his own breathing slow, as if his body was copying what it saw. In the park, the leaves overhead rustled. The city's distant hum was still there, but softer now. Ariel's hands steadied around the mirror globe. In the inner city, the pale figure crouched, bringing its face level with the soldier's. It spoke, though Ariel could not hear words. He felt meaning instead, flowing through him like warmth. I see you. I know why you stand here. You've been protecting something tender. The soldier's rigid shoulders loosened a fraction. The spear lowered not much, but enough that Ariel's chest unclenched slightly. The pale figure turned its gaze toward the small Ember Keeper. The Ember Keeper flinched, clutching the glow tighter. Ariel felt the ember's fear: if it was seen, it would be harmed. If it was wanted, it would be taken away. If it reached out, it would be mocked. The pale figure extended an empty hand, palm up, offering nothing but presence. Ariel felt something shift in him, like a door unlocking. He had spent so many years trying to be admired that he had forgotten how to simply be with someone else's pain, even with his own. The shadow pulsed, frustrated. It did not like this. It fed on speed and blindness. It fed on the moment before you could see. It surged forward, rolling like dark water. The soldier stiffened again. The Ember Keeper gasped. The pale figure did not run. Instead, it lifted its head and looked straight at the shadow. And Ariel felt something startling. The pale figure was not afraid of the shadow. It recognized it. The still water in the bowl rippled once, then showed a new reflection. Not Mara. Not Ariel. A different face, younger, eyes wide and wet, a mouth set in a stubborn line. The face flickered with old scenes, someone speaking harshly, someone walking away, a door closing. Ariel's stomach dropped as recognition hit him like cold rain. That face was his, from a long time ago. The shadow was not only a monster. It was a collection of old moments that had never been soothed. A mass of fear that had learned to wear anger. A flood built from 100 times he had swallowed hurt and called it strength. The shadow surged again, but the pale figure's gaze held it steady, like a hand on a wild horse's muzzle. Ariel whispered, "Empathy." The word tasted strange, like a language he had heard but never spoken fluently. Empathy, Soren had hinted, was not agreement. It was not weakness. It was the ability to feel the shape of another person's inner weather, and to let that understanding guide your next move. Ariel had always believed he was good with people because he could predict what they would do. He could read patterns, anticipate needs, negotiate outcomes. But that was not the same as feeling what someone else felt. That was strategy, not connection. The inner city was teaching him the difference. Ariel lowered the mirror globe slightly and opened the book Soren had given him. The pages did not look like normal paper now. They shimmered with faint ink that seemed to rearrange itself as he looked. He did not read words so much as absorb them, like the book was pouring a map into his mind. He saw how attention could be trained, like a muscle. How breathing could be used as a steady anchor when the flood rose. How naming a feeling could slow it just enough to give the thinking mind a chance to wake. He also saw something that made his skin prickle. Feelings did not only live inside one person. They moved between people like invisible currents. A tense voice could tighten another person's chest. A calm gaze could soften a clenched jaw. A room could catch fear like dry grass catches fire. Ariel thought of the meeting with Mara. He had not only felt the flood. He had spread it. The realization hurt more than Kellen's cold words ever could. The next morning, Ariel arrived at the House of Reason early, before the halls filled with footsteps and bright chatter. The building felt quieter, almost like it was holding its breath. Ariel's reflection in the glass doors looked tired, but there was something else in his face too, a kind of wary openness, as if he were willing to be surprised by himself. He found Mara in a small lounge where the lights were softer and the windows looked out over a slice of rooftop garden. She was holding a cup of something warm. When she saw him, her posture tightened, a reflex like his own. Ariel's chest tightened in response. The soldier inside him lifted its spear. He felt the impulse to apologize fast, to smooth things over quickly so the discomfort would end. But Soren's book had shown him something important. Rushing to fix could be another way of avoiding feeling. Another way of dodging the real moment. Ariel paused. He breathed. He named what was in him: fear, shame, hope. Then he spoke. "I'm not here to defend myself," he said. His voice was steady but not hard. "I'm here to listen. If you're willing." Mara's eyes searched his face as if looking for a trap. She didn't sit down right away. She didn't soften right away. But she didn't walk away either. Slowly, she set her cup down. "You scared me," she said. The words were simple, but Ariel felt their weight. They landed in him like stones dropped into water, sending ripples through places he'd kept still. Ariel wanted to say, "I would never hurt you." But he had. Not with fists, but with force. With volume. With a suddenness that made her feel unsafe. "I did," Ariel said quietly. "I'm sorry." Mara's jaw tightened. "I came to you because I trusted you. And you acted like I was the enemy." Ariel felt heat rise. The flood stirred, wanting to push him into explanation. "I was stressed. I didn't mean it." You sounded accusing. All the old excuses lined up like soldiers. He held the lantern steady. He looked at Mara's face, really looked. The slight tremble in her hands. The guarded set of her shoulders. The way she kept her eyes on his, as if tracking whether he would explode again. He let himself feel what that might be like. It hurt. "I think I felt judged," Ariel said, speaking slowly, as if each word had to cross a bridge. "And I panicked. And I turned that panic into anger. That doesn't excuse it." Mara's eyes flickered, surprised. Her shoulders eased by a fraction, not because everything was fine, but because something new was happening. Ariel wasn't forcing her to accept a story. He was letting her reality exist. Mara swallowed. "Why are you telling me this now?" Ariel hesitated. The honest answer felt risky. "Because I don't want to be the kind of person who scares people I care about," he said. "And because I didn't realize how fast I get taken over." Mara's gaze softened slightly, but she still looked wary, like someone who has seen a storm roll in without warning and is not ready to trust clear skies. "I need to know it won't happen again," she said. Ariel felt fear bite at him. He couldn't promise that with certainty. The flood was real. The shadow still moved in his inner city. If he made a promise he couldn't keep, he'd be building trust on sand. So he chose a harder truth. "I can't promise I'll never feel it," Ariel said. "But I can promise I'm working on noticing it sooner. I can promise that if I feel myself rising, I'll pause instead of pushing. And if I mess up, I'll own it and repair it." Mara studied him for a long moment. The room was quiet except for the soft hiss of the building's ventilation. Finally, she nodded, small and cautious. "I can work with that," she said. Relief washed through Ariel, warm and trembling. The ember inside him flared gently, not with desperate need, but with a quiet sense of being seen. But even as relief came, Ariel noticed something else. Mara's eyes darted briefly toward the doorway. Her shoulders tightened again, just a little. Ariel followed her gaze and saw Kellen standing in the hall, watching. Kellen's face was unreadable. His eyes flicked from Ariel to Mara and back again, as if he were collecting information. Ariel's stomach tightened. The soldier inside him lifted its spear. The shadow stirred, sensing threat. Kellen stepped into the lounge. Well, Kellen said, voice smooth as polished stone. This is interesting. Mara's face went pale. Ariel felt a surge of protectiveness, warm, fierce, dangerous. Kellen's gaze settled on Ariel. You're changing your approach, he said. It wasn't praise. It was observation, the kind that carried a hook. Ariel kept his breathing slow. I'm trying to work better with people. Kellen nodded, almost amused. People are useful when they're predictable. The words chilled Ariel. Useful. Predictable. Ariel sensed, with sudden clarity, that Kellen's calm was not the calm of steadiness. It was the calm of control. It was not a still bowl of water. It was a locked lid. Kellen leaned slightly closer. Tell me, Ariel, he said softly. When you feel that anger of yours, how do you stop it? The question sounded casual, but Ariel felt the trap beneath it. Kellen wasn't asking to understand. He was asking to measure. To find a lever. In the inner city, the shadow curled at the edge of the street, as if smiling again. Ariel realized, with a cold twist in his gut, that not everyone who learned the language of feelings used it to build bridges. Some used it to pull people like strings. And Kellen had just asked for the map. Chapter 5, The Calm That Cuts. Kellen's question hung in the air like a thin blade. In the lounge's soft light, his face looked smooth, almost gentle, but Ariel felt something hard underneath, like stone beneath a shallow layer of moss. Mara sat very still beside Ariel, her fingers wrapped around her cup as if it were the only solid thing in the room. Ariel's chest tightened. The soldier inside him raised its spear, ready to strike. The shadow stirred, eager for a reason to flood him. Yet the pale figure from the inner city, quiet, steady, seemed to stand at the edge of his awareness, holding its bowl of still water. Ariel took a slow breath. He did not answer quickly. He watched Kellen's eyes. Kellen's gaze was sharp, but not frantic. It was patient. It carried the confidence of someone who believed they could wait you out, the way a fisherman waits for the tug on a line. Ariel realized that this was a different kind of danger than anger. Anger was loud. Anger announced itself. Kellen's calm was quieter, and that made it harder to spot. It was the kind of calm that could walk into a room and rearrange people's feelings without raising its voice. I'm still learning, Ariel said at last. His voice was even, but his stomach was tight. It's not one method. Kellen's mouth curved slightly, not a smile, more like a small mark of amusement. That's vague. Ariel felt the pull to impress him, to prove himself, to show competence. That pull was old. It had made him build his whole life on being sharp and unbreakable. But he could feel, now, how that pull could be used against him. If Kellen could hook his need for approval, he could steer him. Ariel met Kellen's gaze. It's personal, he said simply. Mara's eyes flicked to Ariel, surprised. Ariel felt a small spark of pride, quiet, grounded. He had not offered Kellen a lever. Kellen's eyes narrowed by a fraction. For a moment the smooth calm slipped, revealing a hint of irritation. Then it was gone again, replaced by that polished stillness. Fair, Kellen said. But you should know something. He looked briefly at Mara, then back at Ariel. Feelings spread. When you lose control, you don't just affect your own work. You infect everyone around you. The word infect hit Ariel's nerves. The soldier inside him bristled. The shadow surged, tasting anger. Ariel's jaw tightened. Mara's shoulders stiffened. Ariel could feel her body react too, like her own inner soldier rising. The room's air thickened. Ariel noticed it happening in real time, one word, one tone, and the emotional weather changed. He remembered what the book had shown him, how moods ripple through groups like wind through tall grass. He could see it now as clearly as a physical thing. Kellen was shaping the room. Ariel forced himself to breathe again. He turned his attention outward, not to fight, but to notice. Mara's gaze had sharpened, defensive. Kellen's posture was relaxed, but his eyes were probing, always probing. Ariel felt a strange clarity. Kellen wasn't wrong that emotions spread. But he was using that truth like a weapon, a way to make Ariel feel dangerous, to make others fear him, to make Ariel grateful for Kellen's guidance. Ariel spoke carefully. You're right that emotions spread, he said. That's why I'm taking responsibility for mine. Kellen's expression remained smooth. Good. He straightened. Because we're entering a delicate phase. Mistakes will be costly. We need everyone aligned. He let the last word hang, and Ariel felt the subtle squeeze of it. Aligned meant obedient. Predictable. Useful. Kellen's gaze slid again to Mara. Mara, you'll be working closely with Ariel. I trust you'll keep him on track. Mara's mouth tightened. I'm not a handler, she said, voice controlled but sharp. Kellen's calm did not crack. Of course not, he said. You're a partner. Partners support each other. The word partner sounded friendly, but Ariel felt the hook. Kellen was placing responsibility on Mara for Ariel's behavior. If Ariel faltered, Mara would carry blame. If Mara resisted, she would look uncooperative. Ariel felt protectiveness surge again, hot and urgent. The soldier lifted its spear. The shadow rolled forward, whispering, strike. Shame him. Expose him. Ariel's hands clenched under the table. Then, like a cool cloth on a fevered forehead, he remembered the pale figure's bowl of water. Stillness. Reflection. Seeing. He looked at Mara and saw the tightness in her face, the trapped feeling. He looked at Kellen and saw the quiet control. Ariel understood, suddenly, that this was not only about his anger. This was about the emotional currents of the whole place, the unspoken rules that made people bristle and shrink and obey. Ariel spoke to Kellen, but he kept his attention on Mara too, like a bridge held between them. Mara and I will support each other, Ariel said. And I'll be accountable for myself. Kellen's eyes sharpened. For a heartbeat, Ariel felt something like a silent collision in the air. Then Kellen nodded, slow. We'll see, he said. He left the lounge without another word. When he was gone, the room felt as if someone had opened a window. Mara exhaled, shoulders dropping. What was that? She murmured. Ariel's heart was still pounding, but he felt steadier than he expected. He was testing, Ariel said. He wanted to know how to push me. Mara frowned. Why? Ariel hesitated. He didn't want to sound paranoid. But the feeling in his gut was too clear to ignore. Because if he can predict our reactions, Ariel said, he can control the room. Mara stared at him for a long moment, then looked away toward the window. Outside, the rooftop garden swayed gently, leaves moving in the wind. The calmness out there felt honest. Inside, calmness could be a mask. Mara's voice was quiet. My old manager used to do that, she said. He would praise you in public and corner you in private. He'd say things that sounded reasonable, but you'd leave feeling small. Ariel nodded. He knew that feeling. He had chased praise like food and swallowed shame like medicine. The rest of the day moved with a new tension. Ariel noticed more than he ever had before. When Kellen walked past the cluster of desks, people straightened, laughter fading. When Kellen praised someone, their eyes lit up with relief that looked too hungry. When he questioned someone, their face tightened, words stumbling. Ariel began to see the House of Reason as something else entirely. Not a place ruled by logic, but a place where emotions were constantly moving beneath the polished surface, shaping decisions, alliances, fear, ambition. The tower wasn't only glass and steel. It was a living organism made of moods. That evening, Ariel returned to the park with the mirror globe and the book. The sky above the city was deep and velvety, the lights below glittering like scattered coins. Ariel sat under the trees and opened the globe. The doorway formed quickly this time, as if the inner city recognized him now. He leaned in with his attention, stepping deeper. The inner city's streets were darker than before, but not only with threat. There were also pockets of soft light, places where the air felt calmer, where the pale figure seemed to linger. Ariel sensed that these were the moments when he had named his feelings, when he had listened, when he had chosen. The soldier stood near a narrow bridge that arched over a channel of dark water. The Emberkeeper crouched beside it, still guarding the glow, but with less frantic fear. The pale figure stood on the bridge, its bowl of water reflecting the sky. And across the bridge, in a plaza of cracked stone, stood a new figure. It looked like Kellen, but not exactly. This figure's face was smooth and expressionless, like a mask carved from marble. Its eyes were clear and cold. Around it, thin threads stretched out into the air, barely visible, lines that disappeared into the streets, into doorways, into shadows. The figure held those threads lightly, like reins. Ariel's stomach dropped. He could feel what those threads were without being told: influence. Control. The ability to tug on fear, pride, shame, and longing. The pale figure's bowl of water shimmered, showing a reflection not of Mara, not of Ariel, but of a crowded room, people staring at Ariel with narrowed eyes, whispers moving like insects. Ariel saw himself standing alone, isolated, branded as unstable. The reflection shifted again, showing Mara caught in the same web, her career dimming, her face drawn with stress. Ariel's breath caught. Is that what he wants? He whispered. The soldier's spear lifted, pointing toward the thread holder. The shadow rolled forward at Ariel's back, eager to charge the plaza, eager to tear the threads apart with brute force. But Ariel could feel that if he attacked with anger, he would play right into the trap. Anger would make him predictable. It would make him easy to label, easy to isolate. It would make Kellen's story believable. The pale figure turned its calm gaze to Ariel, as if asking a question. Will you fight with fire, or will you fight with light? Ariel's hands trembled around the mirror globe. He felt fear, sharp as a knife. He felt anger, hot as a furnace. He felt something else too, determination, quiet and steady, like a hand closing around the lantern. He looked again at the threads. They were anchored not only to others, but also to him. One thread ran from the marble-faced figure straight toward Ariel's chest, thin and almost invisible, hooked into something tender. Ariel leaned closer, narrowing his attention. He followed the thread to where it attached. And he saw it, clear as if it were written in flame. His hunger to be admired. His dread of being seen as weak. The Ember Keeper hugged the glow tighter, trembling. The soldier's spear shook. The shadow pressed in, urging panic. Ariel swallowed hard. If that thread stayed, Kellen could pull it whenever he wanted. He could make Ariel dance with a smile. Ariel reached toward the thread, not with a weapon, but with the stillness of the bowl of water. He tried to hold his own feeling without flinching, to look at his hunger and dread without turning away. The thread vibrated, as if sensing his attention. The marble-faced figure's head turned slightly, eyes locking onto Ariel's. In the park, Ariel's breath went shallow. His heart hammered. The mirror globe grew hot in his hands. In the inner city, the thread holder lifted 2 fingers and gave the thread the lightest tug. Ariel felt a surge of shame and craving slam into him so suddenly his vision blurred. And the shadow behind him rose like a wave, ready to crash over his lantern and drown the bridge in darkness. Chapter 6. The Storm Learns Your Name. The tug on the thread felt like a hook yanked from deep inside Ariel's chest. Shame flared hot and sudden, and with it came the craving to prove himself, to reclaim his worth in one clean, dazzling move. The shadow behind him surged, delighted, swelling into a wall of dark force. In the park, Ariel's hands shook so hard the mirror globe rattled faintly against his palm. His breath went thin, slicing in and out like he was running. The city around him blurred at the edges, lights smearing into streaks. For a heartbeat, he was back in the meeting room, back in the lounge, back in every moment when he'd felt small and tried to become sharp enough to be untouchable. The shadow loved that feeling. It fed on it. In the inner city, the soldier tightened its grip on the spear, ready to hurl itself at the marble-faced thread holder. The Ember Keeper crouched lower, as if the glow might be snuffed out by the oncoming flood. The pale figure on the bridge lifted its bowl of still water, and the surface trembled, reflecting Ariel's face, wide-eyed, sweating, caught between fight and flight. Ariel felt the pull to charge, to expose Kellen, to lash out in a way that would feel powerful. He imagined words like knives, imagined a public confrontation that would make people gasp. The image was bright and tempting. And beneath it was the hook, admiration. If he won, they would see him. If he struck hard enough, he would be respected. The thread vibrated again, eager. Ariel closed his eyes. Not to escape. To find the lantern. He reached for the simplest anchor he had, the sensation of air moving at the tip of his nose. In. Out. In. Out. He let his attention rest there the way you rest a hand on a table to stop yourself from shaking. He felt his feet on the ground, the bench under his legs, the coolness of night air on his skin. The shadow pressed closer, roaring without sound. Ariel whispered, barely moving his lips. I see you. The words were not a command. They were recognition. He opened his eyes and looked into the mirror globe again. The inner city snapped into sharp relief, as if clarity itself were a weapon he could lift. The shadow towered at his back, but now it had edges. It had shape. It wasn't an endless ocean anymore. It was a storm with a center. Ariel turned his attention to the place where the thread had attached, that tender spot in him that ached for approval. He didn't try to rip it out. He didn't try to deny it. He let it exist, and he held it gently, as if it were the ember itself. In the inner city, the pale figure stepped off the bridge and moved toward Ariel, careful, steady, carrying the bowl of water. The surface showed not a crowd praising Ariel, not a crowd condemning him, but a quiet scene, Ariel sitting alone at a desk late at night, trying to be perfect, trying to be worthy, eyes burning with exhaustion. Ariel's throat tightened. He felt grief rise, soft, deep, unexpected. He had been fighting for admiration like it was oxygen. No wonder the thread had found him so easily. The marble-faced figure watched, unmoving, its fingers still holding the reins. It tugged again, lightly. Ariel felt the familiar spike. I must impress. I must not fail. I must not be seen as weak. The shadow surged. But this time, Ariel didn't run with it. He stayed where he was and named the feeling as it rose, like calling out the name of an approaching wave. I'm ashamed, he whispered. I'm afraid. The shadow shuddered, confused. It wanted him to become only anger, only speed, only blindness. Naming the softer feeling starved it, like pulling fuel away from a fire. The soldier lowered its spear a fraction. Not because danger was gone, but because Ariel was no longer being driven by panic alone. The Ember Keeper's eyes flicked up, startled, as if it had never expected Ariel to speak the truth aloud. Ariel looked at the marble-faced figure across the plaza. He could feel that it wasn't only Kellen. It was the part of the world that treated emotions like levers. It was the cold art of reading people without caring for them, of using insight to tighten control. Ariel understood something crucial. He could not defeat that with rage. Rage would make him predictable. Rage would make him easy to shape. He needed a different strength. He needed to build a kind of calm that was not a lid, but a lake. A calm that could hold depth and still remain clear. Ariel turned his attention outward, beyond the inner city, beyond his own skin. He thought of Mara. Of her flinch in the lounge. Of her careful trust. He thought of the people in the tower who straightened when Kellen passed, who smiled too hard, who swallowed their words and called it professionalism. He let himself feel what it might be like to live under those threads every day. Ariel's chest ached. Not with humiliation this time, but with something like care. In the inner city, the pale figure lifted the bowl again. The water's surface shimmered and showed a room full of people, but now Ariel could sense the currents between them, fear moving like mist, relief flashing like sunlight, tension spreading like smoke. He could almost see it as colored air. Ariel realized that if emotions spread, then calm could spread too. Courage could spread. A steady response could shift a room the way a single candle shifts a dark hallway. He looked again at the thread attached to him. He did not pull it. He didn't have to. He did something stranger and harder. He loosened his grip on admiration. Not by deciding he didn't want it, he did, but by letting it stop being the thing that owned him. In the park, Ariel's shoulders dropped a little. His breathing slowed. The mirror globe cooled, as if responding to the change. In the inner city, the threads slackened slightly, like rope losing tension. The marble-faced figure's fingers tightened, surprised. Ariel spoke softly, not to the figure, but to the hook inside himself. I want to be respected, he admitted, feeling the honesty sting. But I don't want to be controlled by that want. The Ember Keeper's glow brightened, not frantic now, but steady. The shadow behind Ariel wavered. It did not vanish. It was too old, too practiced, to disappear just because Ariel had spoken truth once. But it faltered, like a storm that has lost the strongest wind. The marble-faced figure tested the thread again with another tug. This time the surge of shame was smaller. Ariel still felt it, but it didn't swallow him whole. It was a wave that splashed rather than drowned. The pale figure stepped closer to the thread and set the bowl down beside it. The water reflected the thread, and in that reflection Ariel saw something else. The thread wasn't only connected to admiration and dread. It also connected to Ariel's desire to belong. To matter. To be part of something warm, not just something impressive. Ariel's eyes stung. He blinked, and a tear slipped free anyway, cooling his cheek in the night air. He had spent so long trying to be untouchable that he had forgotten the point of touch. In the days that followed, Ariel began to move differently through the tower. He didn't announce it. He didn't make it dramatic. He practiced in small moments, the way you practice balance by walking along a low wall. When tension rose in a meeting, he noticed his jaw clench and released it. When someone challenged his idea, he felt the soldier lift its spear and he breathed before speaking. When he sensed the urge to perform, to dazzle, he asked himself quietly, do I want to win, or do I want to understand? He also watched Kellen. Kellen's calm remained smooth, but Ariel could see more now. He noticed how Kellen praised in a way that made people hunger. How he asked questions that sounded neutral but left people exposed. How he placed responsibility on others for things they couldn't fully control, then acted surprised when they stumbled. Ariel began to counter it, not with rebellion, but with steadiness. He made eye contact with colleagues when Kellen spoke, silently anchoring them. He asked quiet questions that brought clarity rather than blame. He named tension in the room without accusing anyone, just acknowledging what everyone felt but no one dared to say. The first time he did it, the room went still, as if a spell had been broken. Kellen's eyes flicked to him, sharp and assessing. For a heartbeat, Ariel felt the thread tug. He steadied himself. I'm noticing we're all tense, Ariel said gently, voice calm. Can we slow down and make sure we're hearing each other? A few people exhaled, almost involuntarily. Shoulders dropped. Someone nodded. The room's air shifted. Kellen smiled thin. Efficiency matters, he said. So does understanding, Ariel replied, not challenging, not submissive, just present. The marble-faced figure in the inner city tightened its grip on the reins. Ariel could almost feel it trying to find a new hook. Pride, perhaps. Guilt. Loyalty. Fear. Ariel kept the lantern steady. Later that day, Mara pulled Ariel aside near the rooftop garden. The plants there were green and stubborn, growing in raised beds against the steel and glass. The scent of soil felt out of place in the tower, and that made it comforting. I saw what you did, Mara said quietly. In the meeting. Ariel glanced at her. I didn't do much. You did, she insisted. You changed the air. People breathed again. Ariel felt warmth rise, the glow of being seen. He acknowledged it without letting it grab the wheel. I'm trying, he said. Mara's eyes were serious. Kellen noticed too. Ariel's stomach tightened. I know. Mara lowered her voice. He called me in. He asked about you. About what you're doing. Ariel felt the soldier lift its spear. The shadow stirred. He breathed, naming fear as it rose. What did you say? Ariel asked. Mara hesitated. I said you were taking responsibility. That you were listening. That you were helping the team. Ariel nodded slowly. Thank you? Mara's gaze held his. He didn't like it, she said. Ariel felt a chill. What did he do? Mara looked toward the hall, as if expecting Kellen to appear. He smiled, she whispered. And then he said something about how empathy can be a tool. He said people who learn it can get very good at making others do what they want. Ariel's chest tightened. The truth of it rang through him like a bell. Emotional skill could be a bridge or a leash. The same knowledge that helped someone soothe a storm could help someone cause one. Ariel looked down at his hands. They were steady, but he could feel the danger humming under the surface. Not only the danger of losing himself, but the danger of someone else using the same language of feelings to steer him and everyone he cared about. Mara's voice trembled slightly. What if he's right? She asked. What if this makes you like him? Ariel looked up, meeting her eyes. He felt the question pierce him, not as an insult, but as a real fear. If he learned to read people better, could he become manipulative without noticing? Could the lantern become a spotlight used to blind instead of guide? Ariel didn't answer quickly. He let the question settle. He felt the weight of it. Then he said quietly, If I ever start using this to control you, I want you to tell me. Mara's eyes softened, but they remained serious. I will, she said. Ariel nodded. And I'll keep telling the truth about what's happening inside me, he added. That's the difference. He hides. He denies. He pretends he has no storm. I won't. As he spoke, Ariel felt the inner city shift. The pale figure's bowl of water glinted. The soldier stood straighter, less rigid. The Ember Keeper's glow steadied. But across the plaza, the marble-faced figure lifted its chin, as if hearing Ariel's vow. The threads around it quivered, changing direction, searching for new anchors. In the park that night, Ariel opened the mirror globe again. The inner city appeared at once, streets shimmering, skies shifting. The shadow was there, watching, quieter than before but not gone. The marble-faced figure stood across the plaza, its threads stretching farther now, weaving through alleyways Ariel hadn't explored. And in the far distance, beyond the plaza and the crooked buildings, Ariel saw a new shape rising, tall, vast, and faceless, like a wall built from countless whispers. He felt it more than he saw it, a collective storm, made not from one person's fear but from many. The kind of storm that could sweep through whole groups, whole towers, whole cities of bright minds, turning them into something panicked and cruel. The pale figure's bowl of water reflected a crowded hall where people were shouting, faces red, hands shaking. Ariel couldn't hear the words, but he could feel the contagion of emotion spreading, multiplying. Ariel's breath caught. What is that? He whispered. The soldier's spear trembled, not from anger but from dread. The Ember Keeper clutched its glow, eyes wide. And the marble-faced figure's threads stretched toward that distant wall as if greeting an ally. Ariel realized, with cold clarity, that his work was no longer only about his own storms. If he wanted to protect what mattered, Mara, the team, the fragile warmth of connection, he would have to learn how storms move through crowds. And somewhere in the tower above the city, Kellen was already smiling, as if he could sense the bigger storm coming. Question of the day. When you feel that surge, heat in your face, tight chest, fast words, what's the first emotion underneath it? Fear, shame, or something else? Drop it in the comments. And tell me the next audiobook you want retold on Momentum Mind. If this story helped you spot the hijack sooner, hit like and subscribe to join the momentum. More retellings are coming.